want to make sure this is in fact working. So if you're watching this, thank you so much for coming and taking some time out of your long weekend. And it looks like we've got a few people here, so this will be fun. Let's see. Ooh, an error has occurred. Hope not everyone's hitting that error. Let me check. That is weird. Well, if you're watching this and you can see me, as I look at it on my desktop here, I see an error has occurred for the video, but it looks like it's posted on Patreon just fine. Let me click on it from this and see if it works. Interesting. The YouTube channel is giving me an error. So let's see what's going on here. If you're watching this and you can see me just fine, awesome. I'm just making sure everyone can see it. I'm getting an error on my end on my computer, but when I watch it on Patreon, I can see it just fine. As you can probably hear the echo there. This is weird. So I've used a lot of YouTube. You're talking, but your voice isn't syncing. This is weird. Go figure, the one time. Looks like it's having issues. Well, that's no fun. You're talking, but your voice isn't syncing. It looks like David's here too. David, is my thing looking synced to you? If not, I might actually just redo the video. I'm not sure why this is happening though. It should not be taking place. Never seen this error before. I'm synced fine. Okay, that's good. Playback ID error on the computer. This is weird. I do these YouTube live streams for rock class every month, and I've never had this issue before, which, go figure. Let's see. So anyone watching this right now that can hear and see me, I apologize. I'm just trying to figure out if it's all there. I'm seeing you well. Okay, it looks like it's mostly just on my end on the desktop then. Very weird. All right. Well, that's interesting. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So thank you so much for coming. I think in the future I'm going to be doing these live streams available for all patrons, and then with the $10 backers prioritizing their questions in the event that we start getting more and more people attending. So their questions will be answered first, and then also they have access to some course stuff that other backers don't. But I think we'll just do this for all backers moving forward. Do it every month. I had lots of great questions, and I'm just going to start working through them because there are some really good ones here. Beth left a whole bunch of great ones, and so let's go ahead and dive right in. So Beth's first question is, how do I know in a practice session when I'm done practicing one particular item? And that's a really great question and a very difficult one to answer, because the reality is that you're never done practicing one item, right? You're always going to be making improvements, and you're always going to be working towards becoming, better and more proficient with it, no matter at what stage you're at in your playing. Every time I pick up the ukulele, I'm still, I feel like there's a lot I need to do to get better. And so what I like to do is sort of set realistic, achievable goals. And so, for instance, I've been doing a lot of skateboarding this weekend, enjoying the weather, and I might have a goal to do this trick eventually, But for that session, my goal might be to do a part of that trick that I know I'll be able to do. It's going to take a little bit of work, but I'll be able to get there. And as soon as I, do that thing that I thought of, usually momentum will carry me through to continue working on it. And sometimes it's a little harder than I expected, and I get it done and feel good, and I'm good. And so the way that relates to ukulele is, instead of thinking, oh, I need to play this whole song all the way through in this practice session, try to find like 4 bars, or maybe it's just a little line of something, a little melody, and think, oh, I can get that. And then once you get it, usually momentum of getting it will carry you through to work a little bit harder, and you'll know that you can finish when you feel done because you accomplished that little goal that you'd set out to. Second question, do you have any criteria for deciding when you practice one technique or song enough to drop it from a practice routine and move on to something new? So every time I learn a new song or teach a new song to a student, I have two intentions. The first intention is that I'm teaching them a technique or a concept. The second thing is that we're playing a song. And it's not that the second thing is less important. I'd say it's actually more important. But the reason we're working on it is the first thing, right? And so when you get proficient with a song to the point where you can play it all the way through, you're sort of done with it from the standpoint of you've learned the techniques and the application of those techniques, and it's okay to move on. So I would recommend, once you feel comfortable with a song, if you don't really like the song, move on. Try to do something else that hopefully uses those same sort of techniques and builds upon it so that you can continue with growth. But you don't, get it to the point where you're comfortable and then move on. And if it's taking forever to get comfortable, it's kind of out of your skill level, then definitely don't just sit there and beat your head against the wall or anything like that. It's okay to move on before you think you've mastered it if you feel like you're not making much progress as you're going through. So question number 3, will you explain how to decide when to use 3-finger and when to use 4-finger picking? Basically, it's all determined by string density in the tab you're learning. So if you're playing through something and the G string and C string are sort of, represented on a level that's less than the E and the A, then you can use 3-finger picking. So what I mean by that is if a song plays like the A string, then the C string, then the E string, then the A string, then the G string, then the E string, something like that, if it's something like that, then you can alternate pretty easily with the thumb between the C and the G. Now, if you're playing something that's playing the G string, then the C string, then the E string, then the G string, then the C string, where the G and C are pretty heavily alternated between, it's harder to do that with 3-finger picking. Also, if you ever find something where the G and the C are played at the same time, it's really hard to do with 3-finger picking because you have to move the whole hand up. So basically what I look at is if a song has most of the notes played on like the E and the A strings with the G and the C a little bit more, used as like bass lines or subtly, I'll go to 3-finger picking. If all of the strings are more equally represented, I go more to 4-finger picking. And that's also if I ever see the G and C played at the same time. And so that's how I sort of pick which one of those I'm going to do. June says, I would love some hints to improve chucking. I call it chunking. I don't know which term is right or where it came from, but I learned it from Ukulele Underground. They called it chunking. I also like it because I like a chunky chunk. So there's a lot of different ways to do chunks. I actually have a few videos on my YouTube channel that show this, including my strumming course, which I've made the chunking video free on YouTube. So check that out. Definitely check out my Ultimate Ukulele Strumming YouTube video. It's on there for free. But what's really critical about getting a good chunk is making sure that you're muting the strings. I like to use the palm of my hand prior to your fingers striking them, because a chunk is really going to be a 2-piece motion. It's going to be the hand muting the strings followed by fingers smashing them. And so a lot of people kind of do this, they just kind of touch, and that's not chunky, that's not the chunky chunk. And so make sure you're getting that mute taking place prior to striking the strings. So again, that video should help though on YouTube to get your chunkier chunk. So Beth says, what is the first thing you do when learning a new piece of music? That's a great question, and it completely depends on my intentions with the music. So I have a very different process when I'm arranging songs to teach versus just going through something to play. And between all of you and me, it's a much more complete process when I'm arranging, and it usually ends up with a more correct version of the song and so the reason for that is the first thing I do is I identify, the melody of the song, and I try to make sure that it arranges correctly on the ukulele. And then I reinforce it with the harmony, the chords and things as I'm working through it. And I don't try to do the whole song right away. I try to just do a section of it. And it doesn't have to be the beginning of the song. So this is sort of the answer to it of what's the first thing you do when learning a new piece of music. The thing I recommend is find a part of the song that you really love, and maybe a part that's a little bit challenging too, to see if you can play this song and learn that. Because if you start at the beginning of every single song, the beginnings sometimes aren't very interesting to songs. Like the best part of the song is halfway through it. And this happens a lot, especially on some of the arrangements, of songs. One that comes into mind is the arrangement of Dreams I did. There's one part of that song I just love, and the rest is almost like killing time around that one part. And so find those one parts of the song, learn those, and then reinforce around them. And that's the first thing I like to do when I'm working through it. Beth also says, and this is a loaded question, a two-pronged question. Was there one particular comment, performance, or video that totally inspired you to move forward and pursue ukulele playing seriously? Wow, that's a question. So yes, there is actually, and there's kind of two moments I would say, or yeah, maybe three. But the first moment was I had just had knee surgery in high school, and I'd owned a ukulele, but I never was that serious about it. And a friend of mine sent me some Jake Shimabukuro stuff, and this was 16 years ago, 17 years ago. Time flies. And so then I saw the video of Jake playing While My Guitar Gently Weeps, the one everyone sees, right? And I remember watching that and just thinking, oh my God, I want to do that. And I remember thinking at the time, if I could somehow make a deal with some higher power to be able to play that song, but only that song for the rest of my life, I'd be very happy. And it's still one of my favorite pieces of music to learn or to play, excuse me. And it's that moment of seeing that video really was like, oh man, I want to get good. Like I want to play this stuff. It looks fun, and it is fun. But then there's another there's two other moments. One was I was on a family trip. Well, let me rewind a little bit more. I guess they were the same year, but one was I was on a family trip to Hawaii in 2009, and I was starting to get a little bit more serious with playing the ukulele, and it was beginning of 2009, and I visited Chuck Moore on the Big Island, who builds more better ukuleles. And I just posted a thing on Ukulele Underground, and he said, hey, come to my treehouse, bring your family. He lives in a treehouse. It's pretty amazing. We spent like 4 hours there, and that relationship created, he's really been a mentor for a long time, and he kind of inspired me to do this for a living, where it's like, oh, it doesn't just have to be something you're passionate about. Go for it. And this is when I was in college, so it was like, okay, maybe I'll give this a go. And then that summer, there was an ukulele festival here in Seattle that I went to as a wait, was it 2009? Years go by quick. What year was it? It was 2009. Uke Festival 2009, summer of 2009 was the first festival I played at. And I got to perform with James Hill and others, and it was just unbelievable. It was like, okay, I'm doing this. I'm going for it. So those are kind of the three moments. The first one was the moment if I really want to play this thing more serious. The second one was, oh, maybe this could be something more than it is now. And the third was, it's going to be more than it is now. I'm going for it. So, and then Beth said, was there any one thing that caused you to change directions and where you're heading with ukulele? And that sort of, is with that question that you just asked there. But other questions with it, is other places where I kind of decided to do something else could be, when I realized how much I didn't really enjoy performing, which surprises some people. And I felt like I had to be a performer because that's what you do as a professional musician. And when I started teaching private lessons, I really enjoyed that. And the thing that was most satisfying to me was helping other people sort of unlock what I'd unlocked. And that was, getting those aha moments from people just became the most satisfying thing. And so that was sort of a change as well, where it was like, I'm not going to be a performer. I want to help other people feel like they can be performers. And that was a lot of fun. So that's another instance of it. So it looks like that's all the questions on Patreon, which were some great ones. Let me just check to see if there are any others there and make sure everything's going good with this. My awesome skateboarding friend is here, my ukulele skateboarding friend from Japan. Awesome. Welcome. I'm glad that you made it here. Let's see if there's any other comments from this standpoint. It's so weird that the video is not working on my end, but evidently everyone can see me, so cool. David says, by question, what considerations are important when buying an ukulele? That is a great question. And so it varies a bit, but there's a few things that are more important than anything else. The most important thing, period, is intonation of a ukulele, because if your ukulele intonates really poorly, you're never going to make any progress with it. It's just not going to happen. So that's the first and foremost important thing. Now, when I say that, I don't mean perfect intonation, because it doesn't frankly exist on a ukulele. You can get really, really close, but it doesn't exist. In fact, I remember the first time I got to see Jake Shimabukuro. I got to play with him backstage when he was in Seattle once, which was unreal. But he handed me his ukulele, and before I even strummed, he's like, just so you know, the intonation goes pretty sharp. And so I was playing, I was like, oh yeah, it does go kind of sharp. And that was a little bit of an eye-opener of, oh, okay, there's no such thing as perfect intonation on a ukulele. But there's really bad intonation on a ukulele, so you want to avoid that. The second thing that I look for is sustain. And sustain is how long a note is going to ring. Because if you don't have good sustain, the uke's tone just sort of dies. Play a C note, not a C sharp anyways. And so that's the other thing that I look for along with sustain, or with intonation, is how good of a sustain can I get out of a uke? Because that's going to really determine how much I can kind of squeeze out of it. A lot of aspects of tone I can kind of color myself with my fingers and my nails and whatever else, where if I want a softer tone, you know, I can do that. Or if I want a brighter, harder tone, I can do that. But if the uke doesn't have good intonation and sustain, it's tougher to do. I actually look for ukuleles that aren't bright in their tone. And the reason is because it's hard to make a uke sound darker, but it's easier to make a uke sound brighter. You can always put on brighter strings, basically, and you can always use more nail and the way that you play to increase the brightness. But it's very difficult to take a uke that's really bright and darken it up a little bit in its tone. So that's another thing that I really look for. And then brand as well. You know, like I love working with Kanilea Ukulele because I know that everything that they make is so consistent. And that's, you know, it's tough to recommend ukuleles when people can't try them first, especially during this day and age. But I know, like with a Kanilea ukulele, you're going to get one that intonates well and gets good sustain because their factory process works so well. And so otherwise, the other consideration is trying to play it first, because if you don't play it first, you might not know if that intonation and that sustain is very good. Diana says, I'm trying to learn tremolo. Have you done a tutorial on tremolo? I think I did a live stream for a rock class a few years back, but nothing on the Patreon for tremolo. So the tremolo technique it's tough. It's really tough. And to be completely honest, the only times I ever use tremolo now are when I'm teaching a private student how to do tremolo. The reason is because A, it's difficult, and B, it's a little bit of a one-trick pony. And when I say one-trick pony, what I mean isn't necessarily that you can only use it for one thing. I mean, it is, you know, you're only playing one string really, really fast. But it's difficult to use within like chord melody arrangements that I do. So for anyone that's like, what the heck's tremolo? Tremolo is this, which, man, I wish I warmed up now doing the tremolo. Tremolo is this. It's that sort of sound. It's a very, very fast type of sound. And so there are a couple prerequisites. One is you actually have to have a nail on your thumb. You'll see that my thumbnail comes over just a little bit, and that's just enough to get that tremolo sound. So if your nail doesn't come over your thumb, you won't be able to get this technique the way I do it. So the other thing is that you want to keep your fingers actually anchored on the ukulele and keep your thumb completely straight. The way that I do this technique is it's a rocking back and forth along the point right here as well as the point right here. You'll actually notice you'll get some like, marks and bruising when you do this technique for hours at a time. And then you're just going to practice going down on the A string and up using just the nail of the finger, keeping all of this very stiff and then just kind of rotating back and forth. So I bet if you type in YouTube, Matt Dahlberg, tremolo technique. In fact, let's take a look. Why not, right? Matt Dahlberg tremolo ukulele. Let's see if there is something. So there's a live lesson over a year ago. It's crazy. You'd think I'd remember this. So yeah, if you type in my name, tremolo ukulele, there's actually a live lesson, 30-minute lesson on it. I think the actual teaching the technique shorter than that, but definitely check that out. It'll go into much greater detail than I am here on it. And so that hopefully will help a bit as you're working on it. But yeah, pretty cool. Let me see real quick here. There we go. Yep. So tremolo picking it's called tremolo picking tutorial. Awesome. So are there any other questions in the chat? I want to make sure that I've mentioned before, I'm actually having an issue with playback on the video on the computer, which is really weird. This error keeps occurring as I try to play it. But it looks like people are able to watch it. So if you have any questions, feel free to chat. I'm still seeing it. David says, what is forthcoming in the near future? Great question. So as you know, I'm doing those finger picking shorts. Continue to expect lots of those to be going out. They're really kind of fun too to make, just because I just make up a little pattern and go for it. In fact, the way that I make up those patterns isn't like, oh God, I got to do a finger picking short. What should I do? It's actually, what am I playing? What have I played? And I'm trying to make sure that these shorts are things that I love to play, because I know you'll love to play them too. So it's not so much just something made up as much as it is something that I play. And, I teach private lessons a lot. That's sort of my bread and butter for how I spend my work days, which right now are few work days because of a 4.5-year-old, but I digress. And so with those lesson days, I'll have a few minutes between each lesson, and I'm usually just have my uke in my hands. And once I finish all the prep work, I just have my uke in my hands, and I'm not going to play a song, right? Because I got a lesson in just a minute. So I'm just noodling. And from that noodling comes the finger picking shorts, basically. And so now I'm just sort of making little mental notes of things and trying to remember things I used to do before. So that should be pretty good fun. So what else is coming in the future? That Drunken Sailor video I did on the kayak is kind of the first video of a new series called Ukin 5. I didn't advertise it as that at all, but it was sort of a test run for that. And so these are going to be like 5 minutes or less tutorials that either teach a piece of a song or a concept or something, just these little nice 5-minute lessons. And so I've got about 20 of them, semi-scripted in my notes. And so I'm going to start working through those, doing 1 to 2 of those a month, which I'm excited about as well. And then more of the Zoom workshops as well. We're going to announce the next one pretty soon. And I think you guys are going to like it because it's chord melody. We're going to be learning how to create chord melody arrangements and going through the whole process of how to read music, tab, and create more sound. So Rudy says, hey Matt, hey Rudy, I'm glad you made it. Another comment here. Should we play relax? Is it okay to tense up or use power? Fantastic question. And you should be able to do all of it, right? So that's what's so cool, is to really get an understanding of your opportunities while playing. You need to be across the spectrum of what you want to be able to use. So overall, being relaxed while playing is really important because it helps you loosen up and it makes sure that your energy is going in the right place. If you're really tense all the time, you're emitting a lot of energy into places that you're not using with the uke, right? So you want to be able to play relaxed for that reason. However, when you want to get a ton of sound out of your ukulele and really get a lot of volume out of it, you have to use more power, and that power comes with being a little more tense. little bit more driven. And so something that I really like to do is to actually, play a song, for instance, as like relaxed and easy as I can, and then play it as strong and powerful as I can, and then try to find the distances between. So it's you want to be able to kind of do both, but it's definitely better overall to practice more relaxed because it's more efficient, but good to do both. Got a question here. Could you specify your solo tutorials as far as levels go, in your opinion? That's a good idea. So, yeah, so I don't really like the whole like beginner, intermediate, advanced concept because they're kind of poor, right? And what I mean by that is there are some arrangements that I've done that I would consider very advanced to make sound really good, but relatively beginner, to just start learning. So I don't want to build that as a beginner arrangement only to have an advanced player look at it and be like, oh, I shouldn't go through that, right? And so I try to make most of my arrangements approachable for more beginners. One thing that I think people do is they sell themselves very short for what they're able to play. And there's a recipe for success of playing a song, and the first ingredient is you really want to play the song. So if you're ever looking at a tutorial I've done and you're like, this seems hard and I don't really like the song, don't bother. Like, it's fine. Don't, but if you're ever looking at a tutorial of a song and you're like, hey, this song is sweet. Oh, that looks really hard. Who cares? Just go for it. Because failing is so important to actually making progress with this stuff. There's no such thing as somebody who just plays perfectly from the get-go. It's built on a mound of mistakes and failures. So it's okay to mess up. But more importantly, it's really critical to find something you want to do and pursue that. Adults, especially as we're learning, we have a tendency to kind of get a little wrapped up in something and get a little obsessed. And that can be a very, very good tool to, as you're learning, play the ukulele. If I only played things that I felt like I could play, I wouldn't be sitting here playing any of this stuff right now. It's when I looked at things and tried to play things that I knew I wouldn't be able to do right away, I made the most progress. So push yourself. Try to do things that are, farther than your skill level, just because if it's a song you love, you'll be able to play it. And so all of the arrangements I do, I try to at least have pieces of them that are very approachable for any skill level of player. I do tend to announce at the beginning of the lesson if it's a little bit more difficult or a little bit more easy. But I wish there was a more, an easier way to articulate things with that. That's where private lessons can really come into play too, because it allows, to see what somebody's working on and adapt the things for them. But got a whole bunch of messages while I was talking about that. Asil, is that how you pronounce that? Hey, what's up, bro? Not too much. Enjoying the weekend. What's up with you? Rudy says, I have a problem with sticky fingers. What I mean is that sometimes when I play chord melody, my fingers stick to the strings, making a weird noise when I lift up a finger to move in the song. Yeah, so everyone has that problem from the standpoint of, that, right? So there's a few things. One is it's not as loud as you think it is. It's always louder to you than it is anyone else. However, I also hate that. So what I do is I never raise my fingers straight off, because if you listen, that creates a whole bunch of sound. Instead, what I do is I slant my strings just a little bit, either up or down. So what I'm doing there is, this is removing straight off, and if you see me holding it down here, my microphone's here so that you can hear it. So here's me coming straight off, right? Here's me slanting a little up, going a little down. A little there, but straight, slanted. Now that's even overdoing it a little bit. So whenever I'm playing something, when I move, if I'm moving my fingers, I'm going to kind of be doing something like that. So I don't come straight off, I come just a little bit up or down as I go off, and that makes a world of difference. So start trying that out, see if that can help. I'm a big fan. Love all your content. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Sounds like you're having the same problem as Rudy. So hopefully this little finger movement thing will help you get that. Melanie GCEA says, Matt, you're my favorite teacher. Most of the songs I play are your arrangements. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. it's really trippy to me because I've been teaching the ukulele for a long time, but private lessons really is what I've done. And, seeing people play my arrangements that I've never seen before freaks me out in a good way, but freaks me out because it's like, where did you learn that? I didn't teach it to you. Oh, wait, there's a video online of me teaching it. So I really appreciate that. It's really crazy. It's the power of the internet. And I thank you. Really appreciate it. Diana says, thanks. Your arrangements are beautiful. Thank you so much. I try to make them simple to play, but also, sound good. Oh my God. You son of a. All right. Well, so I thought this was a private stream. Who let this guy in here? Akanshaw Maddie says, I read somewhere that it was bad to learn songs using tab. Why is that? And what is the alternative of learning songs? Is just making your own arrangement. It is not to learn bad learning songs using tab, because tab is just a tool to help you learn. I think that some people have stigmas with things. You need to learn how to read sheet music. You need to learn play by ear. You need to, play with tab, without tab, whatever else. Whatever facilitates your learning is what you want to lean into, and then you want to get a good idea of other ways to learn. So don't hesitate to use tabs, truly, because tabs are how I originally learned, and that will allow you to do more from that. So don't hesitate to use tabs. You can learn how to read music, and you can learn to make your own arrangements, but it's okay. You weren't the one I was talking about. It's this guy here who said, I read somewhere that you're not supposed to use steel strings on your uke. If it's good enough for guitar, why not for ukes? I mean, go for it, especially if you have a nice uke that you can try. No, I'm kidding. Do not put steel strings on your ukulele. The sensei is here in the chat, Aldrine. Thanks so much for coming. Don't put steel strings on your ukuleles, guys, unless they're rated for steel strings, which if they're ukuleles, then they're not rated for steel strings, so don't do it. But it could sound cool right now. But what's up, Aldrine? I hope you're having a great weekend with your family. Your new videos are awesome. Everybody here, go check out Aldrine's videos on YouTube, Ukulele Oversoul. He's started in 2021 doing weekly videos. And what's so cool about them is that they're just like, they're passion videos. They're just these awesome songs, whether he's written them or done a cover, and he makes them fun with costumes and cameos from his family and whatever else. So guys, go check it out. It is too much fun. It's a big highlight of my week. Rudy says, oh, okay, thanks. Hope that little tip helps. Got it. Thanks, big fan. I'm a bigger fan, Aldrine. David says, when is Aldrine going to give a guest lesson on your live for Patreon? That'd be awesome. I've done a few guest lessons on Ukulele Underground, so maybe we'll work something out. Oh my gosh. I guess this thing's going public now. I thought that this was an unlisted stream. Chrome Earth says, I play the ukulele like a classical guitar, the neck very upright and the headstock close to my face. Is there anything wrong with playing like that, or is it better to play a different way? Well, it can be an awkward thing when you're playing like this for some techniques. A lot of the power that we get from our strumming comes from sort of the angle that we're actually holding it at. So it's going to be very difficult to strum like this. Not saying it can't be done, just saying it's going to be more difficult. The ukulele is sort of a funny instrument in how you hold it too. You want to expose as much of the back as you can when you're playing. And so, if you're pressing it up against your body like this, that's a big no-no. I don't think you're doing that, but what we end up doing is almost combining the concept of a classical guitar, kind of between the legs, and acoustic guitar like this. We kind of split the difference where we have this part right here on our thigh, and then we sort of pinch up here and down here up against our rib cage and inward, and then we pull the ukulele out so that we expose the back so that we get more resonance as we're playing and creating sound. And so when you play, kind of the classical guitar style, it looks more like this, right? So if you bring it up and over a little bit and get it over kind of the hump of the thigh here, that can help with your strumming, because it's really difficult to get a good sound strumming like this. So, how long have you been playing the ukulele? So I've been the first time I ever picked up an ukulele, I was like 11. So we've got about 20 years there. But when I really got serious about playing, I was about like 17 or so. So it's been like 14 or 15 years that I've been playing really more seriously. And then when I turned 18 is when I was like, I want to do this. And so, yeah, so I've had an ukulele in my life for 20 years now. And so Rudy says, Matt's right. We love your videos. Yeah, at Ukulele Oversoul. Definitely. They're so good. They're so good, Aldrine. Seriously. Like, really, it reminds me of like the early days of Ukulele Underground type stuff. You know, when I watch those videos, I get excited to play. And that's the magic. So, guys, go check out his videos. Junie says, what size Vuk do you prefer to play? I don't know if we've seen you play a soprano. So this is what I prefer to play. This is a tenor ukulele. Love this size. It gives me the best sound. I'm a pretty big dude too, so works great. Don't think you've ever seen me play a soprano. Let's change that. This is a low G strung soprano by Outdoor Ukulele. It's also tuned up a little bit because I like that sound. And so I don't play soprano very often. Look how comically small it looks, right? But when I do, I usually play a low G on sopranos. I don't know why. It gives, you know, it just sounds more old school to me. But so that's a soprano. I like sopranos. I can't really get a lot done on a soprano just because of how small it is. For me, because I'm not as comfortable with it. It's not in any way less of an instrument, and there are some soprano players that play absolute circles around me. So yeah, maybe later in life, soprano will be something I do more, but for now, it's just nice to throw this in a kayak or something, or go skateboarding with it. Literally, this is my skateboard uke. Check out my Instagram. That's all I'll say on that. All right. What is the best method to learn new hard chords? One finger at a time and then flip it up. So what I mean by that, you know, if we just take a G chord as an example, if you play a G chord like this every single time, index, ring, middle, then you're learning just one thought process. What I want you to try and do is when you're learning a difficult chord, try to do one at a time just like that, and then flip-flop it. So if I'm doing this, maybe now I'm going to do this. And now all of a sudden I'm relearning it, right? But what I'm doing is I'm creating a different context. And then maybe I'll do something different. Maybe I'll start with this finger than these two, right? And then I'll do this way, right? And then eventually what happens is, boom, you have them all, right? And that's what's so great, is you're actually able to play much more efficiently because you have different perspectives of where you should be starting and ending. So that's my favorite method for learning more difficult chords. But yeah, pretty cool. Let's see if there are any other chats here. I'm going to check on Patreon too. I do have to go in a few minutes. My wife is making dinner for us on this weekend. The kiddo is watching Octonauts. Any dads or moms in the chat know about Octonauts? So, Teko, is it pronounced Teko or Tico? I'm so sorry if I pronounce it incorrectly. Teko Ashida, what would you say to someone who says, why don't you play guitar, man? I'll, you know, if I know them at all, I'll just say, hey, why don't you play ukulele? Actually, the thing I usually say to why don't I play guitar is I got 4 fingers and there are 4 strings, and that's it. Like, seriously, I mean, the guitar is so stressful to me because I can't fret them all at the same time in different ways. And so 4 fingers, 4 strings, that's usually what I say for that. Aldrine says, love that advice. Great way of learning chords. You might have been the one to tell me that, you know, a decade ago or something. I don't know. It's it's a great way of, you know, working through things because perspectives need to change. And it's so critical to just not learn something the same way over and over, right? And you want to be able to mix it up. But Seal says, do you actually skate? I do skateboard, and I just Did a whole bunch of skateboarding this weekend, and it was tons of fun. If you actually go to my Instagram, which is just the Jumping Flea, it's I post more skate videos there than I do uke. Now, I'm not good at skateboarding, but I love doing it. So that's my preface there. Well, my kids watch that too. I play guitar, but ukulele is, like you said, easier and hence enjoyable. And so, yeah, I don't, the funny thing about it is I don't necessarily think the ukulele is easier. I just think that there's less of a barrier of entry. And so, the 4 fingers to 4 strings just makes it much more approachable. And that leads you to making more progress with it, right? It's like, is the guitar easier than the bagpipes? Well, I don't know. Is the best bagpipe player in the world better than the best guitarist? You can't say that. But I'll tell you right now, the guitar is a lot more approachable than the bagpipes. A lot more, right? Bagpipes, very difficult to start learning. And so, yeah, keep that in mind. As the ukulele can be more approachable, that doesn't mean it's necessarily easier. Aldrine says, that's all you, bud. I don't remember doing that. Cool. Well, go ahead and take it. It's all about context, right? How many different ways you can do something really defines how good of a player you are. It's what makes Jake so amazing, right? I still remember the first time I ever got to play with Jake. He asked me to play him an original song. I played these pieces of a song, and I'd worked so hard on it and had this like stretch or whatever. And as soon as I was done, he was like, "Oh, that was great. I really like this part," and he plays that part perfectly, like better than I could after months of playing. And then he's like, "Oh, why don't you do like this?" And does it like a different way and then a different way. And it's just like, how are you just watching and doing this? Oh my God, that's what makes you the best. And so that moment I remember, okay, got to do things in different ways and be flexible. So Melanie says, I follow you on Instagram and you're good. Well, I can kind of kickflip, but and so what's your account so I can follow you? It's I think it's just Instagram / the Jumping Flea, same as my YouTube channel. Rudy says, I see your skateboarding videos. How confident are you playing ukulele while skateboarding? I am not, but there's okay, so I mentioned earlier that I'm going to be doing a more of these Ukin 5, these 5-minute tutorials. The next one involves a skateboard. That's what I'll say to this, which is kind of fun. So Octonauts, yep. Yeah, Ring of Fire, good one. Creature report, creature report, creature report. We're done with our mission. Octonauts and yeah, there's a lot of that in my life. It's a great show. Truly, though, it is a great show. So, yeah, Skate and Create. It's Techo, by the way. Oh, awesome. Techo. Thank you. I won. Excellent. Yeah, Skate and Create. Totally, right? It's so much fun. And honestly, ukulele and skateboarding fulfill the same role in my life for like the type of creativity and problem solving that they possess. And that's what drew me to the ukulele. I had mentioned I had that knee surgery. It was because my knees were bad and I was skateboarding too much and had to give it up. Just picked it back up 2 years ago because now I'm old enough that everything hurts, but I digress. Melanie says he posted skating and playing the ukulele at the same time. Well, technically I was playing and then I stopped and I kickflipped and then I played again, but we've got something coming soon. How different is taking care of your ukulele in a colder place like Washington than a warm place like California? Great question. It's Washington actually I would say is a better place than California because at least where I live the humidity tends to stay higher and more consistent. The humidity around here inside homes hovers typically between like 40 and 60%, which is kind of your ideal humidity level for ukuleles. And so for my particular home, I have what's called radiant heating, which means my heating is actually in the floor. So I don't have forced air, which means that my humidity doesn't change as much as some other places. In the event you are in the wintertime, and even if the humidity outside is like 50%, if you have forced air heat because it's 30 degrees outside or whatever, that's going to dry out your ukuleles. It becomes very important to make sure that they're properly humidified. And sometimes in the summers, it can get really, really, humid out here, in which case you want to be careful to make sure your ukulele is not too humidified. So my biggest recommendation is to make sure that you're putting it in the case when you live somewhere out here. And you're not keeping it near a heater or a heat source, so it's not right in the direct line of fire. And then for humidity control, I've been using these. These are called Boveda packs. They're pretty cool. They're I think Daddario makes them too. But it's actually a two-way humidifier pack, so it will suck moisture out when it gets too humid, and it will push moisture out when it gets too dry. And so I just keep some of these in my case. When they get hard, that means they're done. This is 49%, these, and I haven't had to replace one yet. I actually tried to rehydrate a uke by putting 70% in a case for a little while, and those dried out pretty quick, but now that I'm down to the 49%, it's been good. I think the humidity in my studio here tends to be just a little lower than I want it, probably, you know, between like 35 and 40. So that just helps it give it a little bit of an edge. So ukuleles in cold weather, keep them away from heat sources, properly humidified, and in their cases when you're not playing them. Asiel says, how do you make bar chords sound clean? Two things. One is the you know, practice, but that's not what you wanted. The other answer is to make sure that you're getting right up next to the fret wire. So if we just take like a D6 chord, which is just bar across the second fret, instead of just going like right in between like this, what you actually want to do is you want to squeak all the way up to that fret wire, not to the point where you come over it because that's going to create a buzz, but get right up next to it. And the reason for that's just efficiency. You know, when you compress the string, you're actually going to be breaking the string on this point here to stop for the vibrations. So pushing here, if you imagine like being on a, you know, a seesaw, if you're pushing from the middle point, it doesn't work as well as if you're pushing from the edge. And this is sort of that edge, right? So by getting right up next to that fret wire, just like this, and compressing, that helps immensely, especially on 1 and 2. Frets 1 and 2, the hardest two to fret, right? The more you go up, the easier it is, which sucks because B flat chords are down on here on 1, right? So get right up next to that fret wire, and that can really help make your chords sound better. So Rudy says, do you leave your ukuleles hanging up? I have hooks all over my house, so my wife and I have no excuse not to practice. By the way, she loves your Jurassic Park theme. No, thank you. Yeah, so I used to leave this hanging here, and I've stopped. I put it in the case, and that's because it got a little bit dry. And so, no, I don't leave my ukes on hooks. Unless they're ukes like these or something. Like this is made out of plastic, polycarbonate or something like that. And the reason why I was so excited about these outdoor ukuleles is because I can just leave them out. And so I recommend if you're going to do that, have a ukulele that can do that. But when you have a really nice ukulele like these Kanaleas here, you want to make sure you keep it in the case. Unless the humidity in your home is really well controlled and you know that it's 45 to 60% basically. I don't want to keep it in there exclusively or keep it out exclusively. When can kids start learning the ukulele? Anytime, really. My kid is 4.5. He hasn't shown the interest quite yet, but we'll get there. I think one of the most important things is to make sure that you're not pushing it on them in a way that'll make them not want to play. But really, you can start right away having kids start just banging on it, and that's not going to do any harm. Well, might harm the uke. Make sure you get them a uke that they can do this with. But anyways, and how do you stop buzzing while finger picking? So same sort of deal. Usually buzzes aren't coming from the picking hand. They're actually coming from the fretting hand. And so if you're not getting right up next to those fret wires, you're going to get buzzes. Like look at this G chord. See how I'm like in the middle, in the middle, in the middle. And I'm going to push, moderately hard. And here we go for sound. Now I'm not going to push any harder. I swear to God, I'm not going to push any harder. All I'm going to do is I'm going to move them up here. And now listen to this. That's pretty good. This one's a little thuddy. That's because I went a little too far. Let's come back just a smidge. Hey, there we go. So it's really important to get that right up next to the fret wire. So cool. Awesome. Well, this was originally supposed to be for my patrons, but I'm wondering if something glitched out and went on to my YouTube channel in general. I have no idea. But it looks like we've got 20-something people watching this, so that's awesome. I appreciate you all so much for checking this out and for attending this live Q&A. I'm going to be doing these every month on my Patreon page for all patrons. I hope to make it a big part of the thing because the truth is, like the song lessons and tutorials, there's no feedback, and I thrive with feedback. I like private lessons for that reason. I get to see what the students doing. I can watch what they're struggling with, and I can help any way I can. And so even this is a little bit better than just the song lessons for me, because I can see your questions and warn very inexperienced ukulele players to not put steel strings on their ukuleles. So thanks for stopping by, Aldrine. I appreciate it. So awesome. Well, excellent. Well, I will see you guys later. I'm going to go eat some dinner. Thank you so much. Truly appreciate it. I'm looking forward to sharing with you all the different content. I've been uploading a lot more to YouTube, and that's going to continue. Yeah, one last thing. Go check out Ukulele Over Soul, Aldrine's channel. He's got some really cool songs, perfect for this Memorial Day weekend to just kind of relax and watch some ukulele videos. So thanks. Get Creature Report and Ukulele. That, my son would love that. That might be an idea. Octonauts next. Melanie says, your In My Life arrangement has earned me a lot of compliments. Thank you. No, thank you. That's awesome. So I'm glad you're working it out. Well, thank you so much, guys. Take it easy. I really appreciate it. Thanks again for coming, Techo. This is awesome. I will see you guys next month. And as always, if you ever have any questions, feel free to message me on my Patreon. And yeah, thanks again. Take it easy. Talk to you soon.